This video is for the deep thinkers, the philosophical, metaphysical people. It's time to discuss something that's often overlooked and misunderstood. And that is the self. So it struck me one day while I was rereading a few of my favorites, Osho's book on creativity, Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. And what I noticed was how much focus there was in these New Age books on the self. While the self is nothing new, it's as old as time, but yet we're still over here trying to figure it all out. And what I noticed was that maybe the reason why no one actually knows themselves or knows how to be their true selves is because no one's self actually exists, at least not on its own. That's the self with the small s versus the self with a capital S. And I'll be referring to the little s and the self with the capital S a bunch of times in this video. But I want to share with you 5 things that I've learned about the self. And the first thing is that the self with a capital S is interdependent. Just look at the word individual. Individual is not just one thing. It is comprised of at least something else. And in order to understand oneself, one has to understand the interdependent nature we have with our divine nature, our dualistic dependence on something else other than just our small self. In order for the self to exist, there needs to be something for it to interact with. It can even just be your own feeling or thought, which is important to note because just because you think doesn't mean therefore you are. And just because you feel doesn't mean you exist in the capital S self sort of way. So the self is never just a self. It's always related or connected to something else, such as consciousness, the elements of nature, the cosmos, and other human selves. Does a tree exist if not for the dirt, the sun, the wind, the rain? So too for you. If you ever think that you are such an insignificant part of the human existence, you're wrong. And thus, you'll end up thinking yourself out of relevant existence. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is there, does it make a sound? But for the self, if the self exists apart from everything, does it exist at all? You as a self is nothing unless you are aware of your existence in connection to everything else. A flame without air cannot burn. So too, the self without connection to something else, anything else, cannot exist as a capital S self. It will remain small and insignificant to the overall collective consciousness. This is why it's been so difficult to raise the collective consciousness on planet Earth, because there's too many small S's here and not enough big S's. Small S's stay small, insignificant, powerless, unconscious. But with a collective uprising of acknowledging that yourself is part of something bigger than the power of the self with a capital S is felt, and great things will take place. There may be moments of surges in collective consciousness when we come together for a political action or a strike or gathering together in mourning or even in celebration. But then it dies down again. Most people don't know how to source the connection on a regular, everyday basis. Most people do not understand the duality of the individual that is an interdependent and an integral component to a globally collective, unified experience. The second thing I noticed is that the self with a capital S is consciousness. Know thyself. Know thyself to be true. No, actually, know thyself will not exist unless with another element present. That is the level of consciousness that the self with a capital S has. The little s self might think it's conscious because it thinks, therefore it exists, but in fact that is not enough. Osho says that the first thing to be understood is the difference between self-consciousness and consciousness. Consciousness has no idea of I, of ego. It has no idea of one's separation from existence. It is one with existence. It is in deep at one-ment. He says that to be self-conscious is to be unconscious. And when there is no self, when this small, tiny self disappears, you attain to the real self with the capital S. Call it the supreme self, the self of all. The question of who am I, and I must discover my authentic self, sounds like something the ego would say. Or it comes out of a level of desire that's rooted in its own survival to find out. How can I survive if I don't know who I am? The truth is that you already are, which is why you are here. Your survival isn't based on knowing who you are. It's based upon your own conscious realization that you already are. Eckhart Tolle says, we could even say the notion, my life, is the original delusion of separateness, the source of ego. If I and life are two, if I am separate from life, then I am separate from all things, all beings, all people. But how could I be separate from life? What I could there be apart from life, apart from being? It is utterly impossible. He says there is no such thing as my life. And I don't have a life. I am life. I and life are one. So how could I lose my life? How could I lose something that I don't have in the first place? How can I lose something that I am? It is impossible. To say I lost consciousness means I lost awareness. But the truth is that you were aware, that you had become unaware. Thus, you never lost consciousness at all. The next thing I understood to be true, and some may disagree with this, but I understand the self with a capital S to be the soul. The self with the little s is the body, the self-consciousness, the ego. Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that reincarnation means the true person is their soul, not the body. The purpose of life is for a person to realize this reality. Should a body become too infirm to continue the process of self-realization, it drops away, and the soul takes a new body to continue on their path of self-realization. Thus, the self with a capital S remains as a soul. But as a body, it's not attached to that reality. As the body is the realm of self-consciousness, ego, material, and attachment to outcomes. The body becomes inoperable. The body fails you. But the self, the soul, even the spirit will never fail you. The whole purpose of the self is to realize its spirit, its oneness. Not that it's a body, not that it's a doer or even a seeker, but a part of all things everywhere at the same time. Now, of course, that sounds a bit much to live our lives in this way, and that leads me to another aspect of the self, is that the self with the little s is a trickster. This life that we're here living right now is the trick. There are many elements of life that are here to distract us from this oneness and will have us thinking otherwise. So the task is to always come back to the present moment, no matter what, no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through. Because it's not just you that's going through this. Everyone is. But let me just catch myself in that part, because many people are not going through your exact experience. But that is also the trick, to compare and to contrast, to view ourselves as not the same, not connected. Then you will experience the disconnect from the self with the capital S, and will be left with the little self that can't face the reality of oneness because it doesn't seem possible. So watch out for when your little self is tricking you to think that you're alone in your experience. But that's completely false. This is your opportunity to connect into the source of all things, the truth in all things, the common position of all things that are all here right now in the present moment. So you can understand why so many books are going to speak about the self And not as a way for you to understand who you are, but as a reminder of who you are and who you are not. And with that, I have also learned is that the self is always becoming, which is why the gurus, philosophers, spiritual teachers keep writing about the self. They can only speak about the self insofar as how deeply into it they themselves have become. And who have you become? Have you become lazy, greedy, selfish, fearful, angry? Okay, so that is your small s. Or have you become wise, loving, willing, accepting, and peaceful? Well, I think we know where that becoming comes from. The question, who am I becoming? Who am I turning into? What have I done with my life? Why am I still here? What is my purpose? Those are all questions from the little self. The true self knows that they are always becoming. They are not here to do anything or turn into anything or have any purpose other than to be. Come, keep moving forward, keep staying present, to come here into the here and now of it all. Just imagine what life would be like without a self. If you stop and look around at everything around you right now, you will be dumbfounded to realize how surrounded by oneness you are. And when you do that, the little self disappears and gives permission for the self with a capital S to be present. Without everything else around you, you would absolutely not exist. Therefore, sure would be no self. To think there is a self is selfish and ignorant. And yes, go ahead, be selfish, but do so in a way that views yourself as so connected to all that is great and beautiful and miraculous. Selfishly aspire to be so great. Selfishly attach yourself on an equal level to all things here and now. Selfishly immerse yourself into the oneness of all things. As you are becoming, you will also know that no matter what, you belong here. You belong here no more and no less than what we call God. God is not bigger than you, and you are not bigger than God. Even with love, love is not bigger than you, and you are not bigger than love because it is all one. Anytime you think you are fading or that you are degrading, depreciating, devaluing, that is the moment you forgot your oneness. And instead you decided to make yourself a little self because it's not to know thyself. All of this searching and seeking and learning and finding yourself takes one away from the oneness of it all. So look outside of the self more. And when you do that, you feel the connection from what that is out there to what resonates in here. And when you do that, there is an energy exchange that is always taking place. Even the worst of the out there things that go on will resonate with you somewhere in here. And if it doesn't, then perhaps you've become disconnected from your natural state of oneness and sunken into your little self. Don't forget where you come from. It's the same place where we all come from. It's the same place where all great literature, furniture, architecture, scripture came from. In this big book of the basic works of Aristotle, if I was to pull out one line, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Then to know yourself is to know the wisdom of oneness, of the universe, of being the same energy of all things. You are not separate from anything else your eye can see, your ear can hear, or your mouth can taste. It's all you. And it's all you because everything you see shapes your reality. Your perception is only as great as your ability to see it.